Brightline is finally coming to Tampa and the excitement is real. But here's the catch. Everyone wants the train and no one agrees where it should stop. Will it be Ybor City with its cultural charm, downtown with its business core, the airport for travelers, or Lakeland for regional reach? This isn't just a map debate, but it's also about who gets served and who gets left behind. Brightline's success depends less on speed and more on station choice. On Great Train Speed, we'll dive into the options and uncover why the last mile could make or break Tampa's rail future. On paper, the Brightline extension to Tampa seems like a no-brainer. It promises a fast, modern connection from Florida's rail corridor to one of the state's most prominent cities, offering commuters a faster alternative to driving on I-4. The extension would take just an hour from Orlando, connecting a vital part of Florida's transportation network. The concept looks great in theory, but in practice, Tampa faces a set of unique challenges. Tampa is not Miami, and it's certainly not Orlando. The city lacks a central downtown hub that can serve as the natural heart of the transit network, as Miami does with its Miami Central Station. While Orlando benefits from having its station connected to the airport, Tampa doesn't have a similarly clear, compelling location for the station. There's no consensus on the best location for Brightline Station, and the city's transit system is fragmented with different visions competing for what Tampa's train station should be. Some locals argue for a stop in Ybor City, pointing to its historic relevance and its potential as a walkable, culturally vibrant district. Others insist that Brightline should connect directly with Amtrak, offering an integrated transportation experience. Still others see the airport or the I-275 corridor as the ideal location. These differing opinions reflect the complexity of Tampa's transportation network. There is no single Brightline Central, and it's clear that deciding on a location is far from straightforward. These varying visions of what Tampa needs are more than just preferences. They reveal a fundamental issue: Tampa hasn't yet decided what kind of city it wants to be. Is it a commuter hub with a park-and-ride mentality, or is it aiming to shape its future as a transit-oriented city with a station that will act as a landmark for future urban growth? The conflicting opinions about where the station should be located are only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the complexity of integrating Brightline into Tampa's transportation future. How does Tampa's decision on Brightline's station location shape the city's broader vision for urban development and public transportation? And we'll explore that in the next part of the video. By the way, we've noticed our subscriber count is growing, and we're truly grateful for your support. We know there's still plenty of room to improve, so every subscription means a lot to us. Thank you for being part of this journey. When people think about Brightline speed is usually the first thing that comes to mind. The company itself has heavily marketed the train's speed, and politicians love to tout it as a key benefit. Brightline promises a fast, smooth journey, but as we've seen in other cities, speed is not always the most critical factor in determining whether a rail service succeeds or fails. The Tampa Downtown Partnership, an organization dedicated to promoting the city's urban core, has long been focused on creating a vibrant, walkable downtown. This means that the choice of station location is about more than just Speed A rail station that is not properly integrated into the city's broader transit system or is difficult for people to reach, can create a great deal of friction for riders. In this context, the Tampa Moves plan is particularly relevant. Adopted in 2023, it focuses on creating a safer, more equitable, and less car-dependent transportation system. It emphasizes expanding access to walking, biking, and transit while reducing the reliance on cars. Central to the Moves plan is the development of station areas, mixed-use neighborhoods around transit stops that offer housing, jobs, and services within easy reach of public transportation. If Brightline Station is not well connected to these areas, the train will fail to attract the ridership that it needs. A key part of the success of Miami Central was its walkability and easy access to other forms of transit. The station connects to Metro Rail and Metro Bus, providing seamless transfers for riders. Orlando's airport station works because it is a major destination in itself. Tampa faces a different set of challenges. It must decide whether to place its station at a suburban park-and-ride terminal or create a city-shaping rail hub that draws people into the heart of the city. The latter is a more ambitious option, but it's also the one that can lead to long-term success. This is where the data becomes uncomfortable for Brightline. If the project fails to integrate Lakeland into the corridor, it risks underperforming relative to its potential. Brightline's own station access study modeled two scenarios, one where there is a single station in Tampa and one where a station is added in Lakeland. In the scenario where only Tampa is served, the projected ridership across the corridor is about 24 million trips annually. However, when Lakeland is included as a stop, that number explodes to 142 million trips, an eightfold increase. This isn't just about adding a nice-to-have station in a smaller city. Lakeland plays a crucial role in intercepting demand before it floods into Tampa. I-4 is already one of the most congested highways in Florida, with drivers facing long waits at the Lakeland exits during rush hour. This congestion won't magically disappear when Brightline arrives. The pressure on I-4 will remain. Lakeland is essential because it acts as a pressure valve for the entire corridor. Without it, Brightline will fail to capture the true potential ridership in the region. By making the connection between Tampa and Lakeland a core part of the system, Brightline can tap into demand from commuters already using I-4. Ignoring this choke point would be a huge missed opportunity. As a passenger, do you think adding Lakeland as a station would help Brightline reach its full potential in ridership? Comment with 1 if you believe it would, or 0 if you have another idea. As Brightline moves forward with its plans for Tampa, one of the biggest challenges the city faces is integrating the rail service with the existing transportation network. Amtrak already serves the city, as do local buses and the streetcar system. The real test for Tampa's Brightline extension is whether these systems can work together seamlessly. Tampa's transit network, while growing, is still disjointed. The city has multiple transit services operating independently, but no comprehensive integration strategy. If Brightline arrives in Tampa without direct integration with Amtrak's streetcar priority and pedestrian-friendly access, the system will fail to meet the needs of riders. If Brightline arrives in Tampa without these integrations, it will be seen as an isolated system rather than a true solution to the city's transportation needs. It won't just be a missed opportunity, it will also be a failure to deliver on the promise of the project. The history of rail projects in Florida is complex, and the political landscape continues to influence the future of Brightline in Tampa. The memory of former Governor Rick Scott's decision to kill the initial rail project still lingers in the background. That political decision has left a legacy of skepticism toward public rail projects in the state. However, Brightline's success isn't dependent on public trust in government, it's dependent on private investment and market demand. Still, the political environment remains a key factor in determining whether the project will succeed or fail. Brightline doesn't have the luxury of time. If Tampa fumbles the station placement or fails to integrate with existing transit networks, there won't be a second chance to make it right. This project won't fail loudly. It won't be canceled or abandoned. But if it fails, it will fail quietly by underperforming relative to its potential. People will still ride the train, but the full impact of the service won't be realized. At the end of the day, Brightline is just the vehicle. The question is, does Tampa want to be a city where trains pass through, or a city where trains are an integral part of the urban fabric? All will be revealed soon.
Amtrak's iconic Amfleet cars have carried passengers across America for decades, becoming a vital part of the nation's rail system. Now, after decades of service, it's time to say goodbye to these cars. However, there is a new development. So, what is it? Let's find out. The Amfleet cars were initially introduced during the 1970s to replace aging equipment inherited by Amtrak after its creation. Amtrak received its first batch of Amfleet coaches between 1975 and 1977, funded by Congress. The total order eventually reached 492 cars, which would go on to become the backbone of the Amtrak fleet. It's a testament to the Amfleet's durability that these cars have remained in service for more than twice that long, a span of over 50 years. Recently, Amtrak issued a request for information for the eventual scrapping of its beloved Amfleet cars, marking a pivotal moment in the company's long history. After 5 decades of service, these stainless steel coaches, which began arriving from the Budd Company in the early 1970s, are nearing the end of their operational life. The cars have been the backbone of Amtrak's fleet, serving both regional and long-distance routes across the U.S. However, Amtrak's chronic capacity shortage and the need for modernization have led to the difficult decision to phase out these durable yet aging assets. The company has issued the request to solicit public interest in the procurement of these legacy cars, specifically seeking proposals for the sale and scrapping of 370 coach and 58 business-class, capstone-converted Amfleet 1 passenger cars, along with 75 Cafe-class cars and 11 former Metroliner cab control coaches. While the company's intent is not to find operators for these cars, but rather to dispose of them, the RFI signals the end of an era. The reasons behind this decision are clear. Amtrak is grappling with a growing capacity shortage, compounded by the sudden removal of the Horizon coach fleet in the spring. With new Aero train sets set to replace the Northeast Corridor and regional workhorses starting in 2026, the need for modern, efficient rolling stock has become paramount. The aging Amfleet fleet, while still sturdy and functional, is increasingly expensive to maintain. The regular overhauls and modifications needed to keep them running at their best have become less cost-effective, leading Amtrak to the conclusion that a new generation of trains is necessary for the future. Amtrak's decision to retire the Amfleet cars is not without its challenges. While the cars have reached the end of their useful lives, they have been dependable workhorses for decades. Their durability has been tested time and again, with 13 of the original 492 Amfleet 1 cars lost to accidents over the years. Their sturdiness has been largely due to Amtrak's commitment to maintaining them at the company's heavy maintenance facility in Delaware. The financial and logistical challenges of replacing such a large fleet cannot be underestimated. However, the introduction of the Aero train sets in 2026 is a step in the right direction. These modern train sets will offer improved efficiency, increased passenger capacity, and enhanced comfort for passengers, which will make Amtrak more competitive in the modern transportation landscape. The Aero trains will be capable of replacing both Amfleet 1 and Amfleet 2 cars, providing a much-needed boost to Amtrak's ability to meet the growing demand for rail travel. Besides Amtrak's original Amfleet replacement plan, another solution is Liberty-Liner 250, as proposed by Ameristar Rail. This plan offers a potential partnership with the twist that Ameristar Rail is a private sector, which could help accelerate the modernization of Amtrak's fleet. Ameristar Rail offers a solution that is both innovative and forward-thinking. This new fleet would be powered by Alstom Avelia Liberty high-speed train sets, the same trains currently being used in the next-gen Acela project. The Liberty-Liner 250 would be a fitting tribute to America's 250th birthday and a symbol of the country's push toward modernizing its rail network. These trains would be the first in the United States to exceed a top speed of 160 miles per hour, significantly faster than the current Amfleet service. Ameristar Rail's vision includes offering triple-class service on these trains, which will feature coach, business, and first-class seating. This configuration ensures that all passengers, whether seniors, families, students, or low-income individuals, will have access to affordable travel while also enjoying the comforts of modern high-speed trains. For the first time, everyday Americans will have the opportunity to experience high-speed rail travel, leveling the playing field between those who can afford premium services and those who cannot. The Liberty-Liner 250 will drastically improve the frequency and speed of Amtrak's Northeast Corridor services. Under the Ameristar Rail proposal, hourly non-stop service between New York and Washington will be completed in just 1 hour and 59 minutes. Additionally, there will be hourly express service between Boston, New York, and Washington, as well as more limited stops on the New York-Washington route. The team behind this proposal includes industry experts with extensive experience in rail operations and service innovations. Neil Glassman specializes in bankruptcy, insolvency, and intellectual property law. He has also played a pivotal role in shaping Ameristar Rail's strategies for improving Amtrak's Northeast Corridor service. Scott R. Spencer, co-founder of Ameristar Rail and a seasoned rail industry consultant. His career includes major projects including the Philadelphia Airport Line and Taiwan High-Speed Rail. Notably, Spencer developed the startup and operating plans for North America's first through-service rail system at SEPTA in 1984, including the opening of SEPTA's commuter rail tunnel. Paul Reistrup, former president of Amtrak, has been instrumental in advising on service and route innovations for Amtrak's Northeast Corridor. His leadership led to Amtrak's acquisition of the Northeast Corridor and the implementation of key infrastructure improvements which remain critical to Amtrak's current operations. William Vigrass, a rail industry consultant and former assistant general manager at PATCO. His contributions to PATCO's success in setting national standards for reliability and service efficiency continue to shape current operations. In a letter to Amtrak President Roger Harris, Scott Spencer emphasized the urgency of replacing the Amfleet cars and outlined the safety advantages of implementing the Liberty Liner 250 solution. He also offered that solution at Amtrak's latest public meeting. Amtrak has expressed an open-minded approach to the proposal, recognizing the value of considering alternatives that could enhance service quality and safety while addressing the company's long-term goals. But along with this, Amtrak has rejected Ameristar Rail's proposal for the Transcontinental Chief, a transcontinental passenger train featuring an auto-carrying service. According to Amtrak, the proposal lacked a solid business case to justify its ambitious scope. Ameristar Rail had suggested partnering with Amtrak to launch a 72-hour service between New York and Los Angeles, starting in 2026. The plan included drive-aboard service for truckers and passenger auto transport, utilizing existing Amtrak routes and equipment. However, Amtrak did not engage in serious discussions about the proposal, as stated by Scott Spencer. Spencer now plans to involve Congress, the Federal Railroad Administration, and the U.S. Department of Transportation to push for negotiations, with hopes of launching the service by the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. After all, Ameristar Rail's proposal could be a game-changer for Amtrak, providing a private sector solution to a problem that has plagued the company for years. With the increasing demand for rail service and the need for faster, more efficient transportation, the Liberty Liner 250 could usher in a new era of high-speed rail in the United States, starting with the Northeast Corridor. If you ride Amtrak or NJ Transit through New Jersey, you've probably been stuck waiting because of the Portal Bridge. That frustration is exactly why the long-promised Portal North Bridge replacement matters so much. Billions of dollars are finally being spent to fix one of the biggest rail bottlenecks in America. But here's the catch. Before riders see smoother trips and faster service, they're going to feel the impact of construction first. Schedule changes, delays, and temporary sacrifices are now part of the deal. So what's new in the latest update and how much disruption should riders expect? Let's take a closer look. The Portal North Bridge project is a major rail infrastructure upgrade designed to eliminate one of the Northeast Corridor's most severe bottlenecks, the aging Portal Bridge in New Jersey. Built in 1910, the existing swing bridge must open for river traffic. Before the pandemic, It carried more than 450 daily trains and nearly 200,000 passengers, making it a critical weak point on the rail line linking Washington, Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. And to replace this construction, the Portal North Bridge has appeared with a high-level fixed-span structure rising more than 50 feet above the river, removing the need for movable parts entirely. Construction began in August 2022, following federal approval earlier that year. By May 2024, the project reached 50% completion, and by fall 2024, it stood at 70%. Major milestones included the installation of 3 massive steel arches between November 2024 and February 2025. As of early 2025, the project is approximately 80% complete. The first track is scheduled to open in March 2026, with full 2-track service expected by late 2027. The old Portal Bridge is slated for removal in 2028. With a total cost of $2.2 billion, the project is funded through a mix of federal, state, and regional contributions, including major investments from the Federal Transit Administration, New Jersey, Amtrak, and the Port Authority. And recently, the project reached another major milestone. What is it? Let's find out in the next part of the journey. And if you're enjoying this topic, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any updates from our channel on the world of trains. In Kearney, the first of 3 massive steel arches for the new Portal North Bridge has arrived at the construction site, marking a visible step forward in a project that has long carried outsized importance for the Northeast Corridor. For Amtrak, the moment is more than symbolic. In a recent update, the agency confirmed that over the past 3 weeks alone, construction crews have placed roughly 800 tons of ballast and installed 1,200 linear feet of track and ties on the new structure. They are the kinds of incremental physical progress markers that signal a project moving from planning and preparation into tangible delivery. The urgency behind this replacement effort is well understood by anyone who regularly travels between New Jersey and Manhattan. The existing Portal Bridge spans the Hackensack River and was designed as a swing bridge to accommodate maritime traffic. Each time it opens and closes, mechanical components are stressed. The new Portal North Bridge is designed to eliminate that vulnerability. As Amtrak Vice President Jaidev Sankar explained, once trains are running on the new bridge, the reliability issues tied to opening and closing the span will simply disappear. Because it's 50 feet over the water, it will not need to be opened, so it will be fixed. So all those issues related to opening and closing the bridge and the unreliability of that will go away, Amtrak Vice President Jaidev Sankar said. In practical terms, that means fewer unscheduled stops, more predictable travel times, and a stronger foundation for future service growth. What makes this moment particularly notable is the timing. Across the country, major infrastructure projects are struggling with cost overruns, political friction, and schedule slippage. Against that backdrop, Portal North Bridge stands out as a project that is, at least for now, tracking close to its original plan. Officials are targeting structural completion by February 2025, with revenue service beginning in March 2026. If achieved, that would place the bridge among a small group of large-scale U.S. rail projects delivered without dramatic delays. The bridge's role extends far beyond its immediate footprint. It is a critical early component of the broader Gateway program, an ambitious, multi-decade effort aimed at modernizing the rail link between Newark and New York. New Jersey Transit President Kevin Corbett says it's a major milestone in the project. It's a several-mile-long stretch which will be the first segment of what we need to do to totally rehab the Northeast Corridor, Corbett said. For now, Portal North Bridge serves as the first visible proof that this vision is moving from concept to construction. Political leaders have been quick to frame the milestone in broader terms. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy described the arrival of the first arch as a turning point, emphasizing reliability for daily commuters and economic opportunity for the region. His remarks reflect a recurring theme in infrastructure debates. Governor Phil Murphy said, "Together we are transforming the Portal North Bridge into an access point that will provide our rail passengers with a more reliable commute and our entire region with economic opportunity. We are now proudly one step closer to rebuilding our regional infrastructure and assuring that the most important public works project in America continues to move forward." There is a clear sequencing benefit. Once the new bridge opens, the old Portal Bridge is slated for demolition in 2027, allowing service to continue uninterrupted while removing an outdated structure and creating room for future gateway expansions. What makes this milestone stand out is its visibility. For riders long delayed at the Hackensack River crossing, it signals real change. If trains begin running in spring 2026 as planned, the new bridge will do more than replace an aging span. It will ease one of the Northeast Corridor's most persistent bottlenecks and mark rare forward momentum in U.S. rail infrastructure. But before that brighter future becomes reality, the project still has challenges ahead. So what are those challenges? And how are planners working to address them? And as passengers and citizens, do you think this project can truly make a difference for the region? Hit 1 if you think it can, or 0 if you see it differently. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. As work progresses on the new Portal North Bridge, the story now extends beyond engineering. Legal disputes, service impacts, and public confidence have become part of the project's reality. In early 2025, NJ Transit quietly settled a wrongful termination lawsuit filed by former construction manager Mohammed Nassim. The January settlement, first reported by Politico, only became public months later after NJ Transit acknowledged it in response to a state budget committee inquiry. Nassim, hired in 2021 to oversee construction of the 2.5-mile fixed-span bridge, had raised concerns about cost, safety, track settlement, nearby active rail lines, and navigation on the Hackensack River. He was terminated in October 2023 and later sued NJ Transit and its former capital programs director. The case was settled for $450,000 without an admission of liability. NJ Transit says the project remains safe, on schedule, and within budget, though the episode adds tension to a high-profile infrastructure effort. At the same time, riders along the Northeast Corridor are preparing for a more immediate and tangible challenge. Service disruptions are tied to the long-planned track cutover onto the new bridge. Beginning in February, NJ Transit and Amtrak will start shifting one track from the existing old Portal Swing Bridge onto the first completed track of the new structure, spanning the Hackensack River in Kearney. Despite the inconvenience, officials say the disruption will be far more limited than past events. Unlike the 2017 Summer of Hell at Penn Station, which cut service by about 25% for 44 days following a derailment. Even though the current cutover is expected to be shorter and less disruptive. Whether the Portal North Bridge becomes a model of success will depend not just on engineering, but on how openly agencies manage risk and disruption. For now, the project moves forward, balancing the promise of better reliability with the challenges of rebuilding an active rail corridor. Mention Amtrak's Superliner project, and you'll hear the same responses: too costly, too old-fashioned. Then comes the inevitable follow-up: wouldn't single-level trains be simpler? At first glance, it feels like the right question. After all, single-level equipment looks modern, fits anywhere, and matches the sleek trains seen worldwide. But this debate isn't about nostalgia or aesthetics. It's about math, capacity per car, efficiency per mile, and the economics of scale. On today's episode of Great Train Speed, we'll dig into the numbers behind Amtrak's bold plan and uncover why simplicity isn't always the smarter answer. There are two instincts people tend to bring into this debate. One group looks at bi-level trains and sees nostalgia. They associate superliners with the 1970s, with long routes that feel frozen in time. The other group looks at single-level trains and sees simplicity. Fewer types of cars, easier maintenance, more flexibility across the network. Both instincts are understandable, but long-distance rail does not run on instinct. It runs on economics, specifically seat-mile economics. Look closely at the economics of a 1,500 or 2,000-mile train journey, and the story changes fast. What seems logical for short corridors, or even for airplanes, doesn't always apply to long-distance rail. Some of the most intuitive arguments for single-level trains turn out to be incomplete once you crunch the numbers. So, why does this tension exist? That's exactly what we'll explore in the next segment. And if you're curious to see how the math reshapes the debate, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next. At the center of Amtrak's current fleet debate is a consequential decision with long-term financial implications. The railroad is effectively weighing a $7 billion choice about the future of its long-distance services. On one path is the continuation of a complex procurement to replace its aging Superliner fleet with nearly 600 new bi-level cars using bipartisan infrastructure law funding. On the other is a pivot toward a standardized, single-level national fleet, simpler on paper, but far more complicated in practice. At first glance, the argument for standardization appears compelling. The airline industry offers a familiar and often cited example. Book a ticket on Southwest Airlines, and you already know what aircraft you will fly: a Boeing 737. Southwest's single aircraft strategy simplifies pilot training, streamlines maintenance, reduces spare parts inventories, and improves scheduling flexibility. These efficiencies translate directly into lower costs and higher reliability. Railroads once understood this logic just as clearly. In the early 20th century, railroad executive E.H. Harriman pushed Union Pacific and Southern Pacific toward standardized locomotive designs, freight cars, and operating practices. That standardization was not merely an engineering preference, it was a competitive advantage. Fewer variations meant lower costs, faster repairs, and more predictable operations across vast networks. Amtrak, by contrast, operates one of the most diverse passenger fleets in North America. Acela train sets coexist with Amfleet, Horizon, Superliner, Venture, and Viewliner equipment, each with its own specifications and constraints. Some cars can operate almost anywhere, others cannot. Superliners, for example, are restricted by clearance limitations in the Northeast, making them unusable on key portions of the network. Every fleet requires its own spare parts, specialized maintenance expertise, and crew training. From a distance, the inefficiency is obvious. This is why the single-level argument initially feels decisive. One basic car type, fewer variations, simplified training. But long-distance rail operates under a fundamentally different cost structure. Unlike corridor service, where trains can be shortened, extended, or turned quickly, long-distance trains are dominated by fixed costs, expenses that do not meaningfully change based on train length. Crew costs do not shrink when a train has fewer cars. Track access fees charged by freight railroads do not shrink. Dispatching costs remain the same. Terminal servicing, inspections, and yard operations do not suddenly become cheaper. Roughly 40% of the cost of running a long-distance train is fixed regardless of how many cars are attached to it. That single fact reshapes the entire economic equation. Once fixed costs enter the picture, capacity becomes the central issue. This is where bi-level equipment matters. A bi-level passenger car offers approximately 40% more usable floor space than a single-level car of similar length. That additional space can be configured as more seats, more sleeping accommodations, or expanded food service, all of which translate directly into revenue-generating capacity. To move the same number of passengers with single-level equipment, Amtrak would need more cars. More cars mean more trucks, more HVAC systems, more doors, more wiring, more inspections, and more components that can fail. When cost is measured per seat rather than per vehicle, single-level equipment becomes inherently more expensive for long-distance service. There is currently no indication that Amtrak has abandoned its plan to replace Superliners on its western long-distance routes. That procurement process has stalled, in part because manufacturers have raised concerns about Amtrak's requirement to equip bi-level cars with elevators to meet ADA standards. Integrating vertical circulation into bi-level designs is technically challenging and expensive, and the procurement risk is real. A common follow-up proposal is to operate shorter single-level trains more frequently. On paper, this appears to offer a compromise: lower capacity per train offset by higher frequency. In reality, this idea collides directly with the fixed cost wall. Running 2 trains instead of 1 does not have costs. It doubles many of them. 2 crews instead of 1. Double track access fees. Increased yard congestion. Greater dispatching complexity. More negotiations with freight railroads that already view passenger service as an imposition on their networks. Long-distance rail does not become cheaper by adding frequency. It becomes cheaper by maximizing passengers per train mile. The appeal of a single-level national fleet is understandable. It promises simplicity, flexibility, and alignment with modern corridor rail practices. But long-distance rail does not behave like aviation or short-haul passenger service. It is governed by different constraints, different cost drivers, and different physical realities. Another widely held assumption in the Superliner replacement debate is that single-level equipment must be cheaper to maintain. A standardized fleet suggests fewer specialized parts, easier access for mechanics, and greater commonality across the system. But maintenance costs do not scale with variety alone. They scale with quantity. Replacing bi-level cars with single-level cars would require Amtrak to maintain more physical equipment to move the same number of passengers. More cars mean higher axle counts, additional wheel sets, more HVAC units, more door mechanisms, and more brake components. Every one of those elements must be inspected, serviced, and eventually replaced. Even under perfect standardization, labor hours increase simply because there is more hardware to maintain. Maintenance does not occur per train, it occurs per component. As component counts rise, so do failure points and downtime. The result is not lower maintenance cost per passenger, but higher. Standardization can reduce complexity, but it cannot override the basic arithmetic of component count. Boarding time is another area where single-level trains are often assumed to hold an advantage. In theory, level boarding and simpler interiors should shorten station dwell times. In practice, long-distance dwell times are driven by a different set of constraints. Platform length, ADA boarding procedures, staffing levels, and checked baggage handling all play a significant role. Many long-distance stations already have platforms shorter than the trains they serve, requiring staged boarding and unloading. Introducing longer single-level trains would intensify this challenge rather than resolve it. Unless Amtrak embarks on a nationwide program to rebuild stations with full-length high platforms, an undertaking that would cost billions, single-level equipment offers no inherent boarding advantage for long-distance service. Clearance restrictions, particularly on the Northeast Corridor, are frequently cited as a decisive argument against bi-level equipment. It is true that Superliner-style cars cannot operate freely through the most constrained portions of the network. However, this limitation is often overstated. Amtrak already treats Washington, D.C. as a logical terminal for many long-distance routes, with well-established transfers to the corridor. Keeping long-distance trains off the most congested segment of the system can actually improve reliability by reducing conflicts and delays. In this context, bi-level clearance limits represent a trade-off rather than a fatal flaw. They constrain routing options while simplifying operations elsewhere. Finally, there is the question of passenger experience, which is inseparable from the business case. Long-distance rail does not compete with airlines on speed. It competes on experience. Bi-level superliners offer upper-level lounges, expansive views, and clear separation between seating, dining, and sleeping areas. These features are not decorative, they are the product. Passengers choose long-distance trains for reasons that extend beyond transportation alone. Diluting that experience by shifting to corridor-style single-level consists risks eroding the very demand that sustains the service. Experience has economic value, supporting higher yields, stronger loyalty, and a distinct identity for long-distance rail. Ultimately, this debate is often framed as a choice between modernity and nostalgia. In reality, it is a choice between two cost structures. Standardization has real benefits, but only when it aligns with the math. The critical question is not which fleet appears simpler on a spreadsheet, but which one moves the most people at the lowest cost per seat over the longest distances. So when you hear that Amtrak's new Superliner plans feel expensive or outdated, it is worth asking a different question. Is this nostalgic or is this simpler? But what moves the most people most efficiently in the real world? For long-distance rail, the answer is still bi-level, not because of the past, but because of the math. Picture yourself on America's busiest train route, expecting a smooth ride but slowing down at a 100-year-old bridge. Built in 1906, this single crossing has quietly read aloud the pace of travel between Washington and New York for generations. Passengers rarely notice, but Amtrak has battled its limitations for decades. Now, after years of patchwork solutions, the agency is preparing for a bold step, removing the bridge entirely. In today's Great Train Speed, we'll uncover when this transformation will unfold and how it could revolutionize mobility across the Northeast. Originally built in 1906 by the Pennsylvania Railroad, the bridge was a marvel of engineering at the time. It featured a two-track swing-span design that allowed for the passage of both trains and ships. However, after more than 116 years of operation, the bridge is now one of the limiting factors in the operation of the Northeast region. While the structure itself remains safe, its design is no longer sufficient to meet the high demands of the modern rail system. The Susquehanna River Railroad Bridge sits between two important cities in Maryland, carrying passenger trains from Amtrak, commuter trains from the Maryland Area Regional Commuter Service, and freight trains from Norfolk Southern, with CSX holding operating rights. Every Amtrak train traveling between Washington, D.C. and New York crosses this bridge. For that reason alone, the bridge is crucial. It is not merely a small crossing on a secondary line. It is a mandatory crossing for the Northeast Corridor, which handles the busiest passenger rail traffic in the United States. The most significant limitation of the existing bridge is its swing span, which introduces several operational challenges. Trains crossing the bridge must reduce their speed to a maximum of 90 miles per hour, while freight trains are limited to 30 miles per hour or less, despite being able to reach speeds of up to 125 miles per hour just beyond the bridge. This speed reduction creates a capacity bottleneck, impacting both travel times and the reliability of train schedules. While the swing span was a cutting-edge design when it was built, it is no longer suited to the needs of today's rail system. When tall vessels need to pass through the river, the swing span must be raised, requiring manual coordination by dozens of personnel. This leads to operational disruptions, with trains having to stop and vessels waiting for the bridge to be lowered again. In a modern, high-frequency rail network where tight scheduling and minimal delays are critical, this outdated design simply cannot keep up. In addition to the operational challenges posed by the swing span, maintaining a 116-year-old bridge is becoming an increasingly expensive and time-consuming task. The old bridge requires constant upkeep to stay operational, and its maintenance costs are rising each year. So what is the solution? Amtrak Susquehanna River Bridge Project. First of all, this project is not a cosmetic upgrade. It is a full-scale overhaul designed to address the limitations of the old bridge and modernize the infrastructure in this critical part of the rail network. The existing two-track swing bridge will be replaced with two new fixed bridges, creating a four-track crossing that is designed for mixed-use operations. Two of the tracks will primarily serve Amtrak's intercity passenger service, while the other two tracks will be allocated for MARC commuter trains and freight operations. This separation of tracks will reduce conflicts, improve dispatching flexibility, and allow passenger trains to operate at consistently higher speeds. With the separation of services, the risk of delays caused by scheduling conflicts between passenger and freight trains will be minimized. But this project is not just about building a new bridge. It also includes rebuilding the surrounding 5 miles of rail infrastructure. This encompasses track, catenary systems, signaling, and interlockings, ensuring that the entire corridor is capable of handling the increased speeds and operational flexibility the new bridge will provide. Simply replacing the bridge without upgrading the surrounding infrastructure would mean failing to realize the full benefits of the new bridge. One of the most significant achievements of the replacement project is the ability to increase the maximum operating speed from 90 miles per hour to 160 miles per hour. The new bridge will eliminate one of the last major slow zones on the NEC, allowing for much faster travel times between Washington, D.C. and New York. The new design will not only improve the reliability of services but will also help Amtrak meet its long-term goal of providing high-speed rail services on the corridor. At an estimated cost of $2.7 billion, the Susquehanna River Railroad Bridge Replacement Project is one of the largest and most expensive bridge projects on the Northeast Corridor. However, the funding structure for this project tells an important story about the changing priorities in American infrastructure development. The majority of the funding for this project comes from the Federal-State Partnership Program, part of the Federal Railroad Administration's Northeast Corridor Grant Program. In November 2023, the FRA announced a $2.08 billion federal grant for the project as part of a larger $16.4 billion package to support various projects along the NEC. The Federal Railroad Administration is proud of the federal investments being made in the Susquehanna River Rail Bridge project. We are eager to see those investments move Amtrak riders, commuters, and freight faster and more efficiently. Former FRA Administrator Amit Bose shared his thought on the projects. With the bipartisan infrastructure law, we have the opportunity to update and replace more aging rail structures like the Susquehanna River Rail Bridge, and we look forward to working with states and entities to deliver the rail projects people across the country need and deserve. Additional contributions are being made by Amtrak and the state of Maryland, with the Maryland Department of Transportation committing $3 million for the design phase. Historic investments from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act are making the replacement of the Susquehanna River Bridge a reality. This project is critical to ensure the safety of Maryland commuters and the reliability of our supply chains up and down the East Coast. I was proud to join members of the Maryland congressional delegation this summer to announce $20 million for the completion of the design work for this project, and I will keep working to deliver federal funding for the needed modernization of our state's infrastructure. Senator Chris Van Hollen echoed the same sentiment. The project moved through competitive bidding in 2022 and 2023, with the construction management being structured under a construction manager at risk model. Early contracts focused on clearing obstacles, including the removal of 19th-century bridge piers that still cluttered the Susquehanna River. By late 2024, these piers were successfully removed, marking a significant milestone in the project. Final design work for the project was completed in 2024, and groundbreaking took place in July of that year. Since then, utility relocations, environmental mitigation efforts, and archaeological surveys have been ongoing. Major construction of the two new bridges is expected to accelerate starting in 2026, with the full completion of the project slated for 2036. That timeline might seem lengthy, but it reflects the reality of replacing a live piece of infrastructure on the busiest passenger rail corridor in the United States. The project cannot afford to shut down the rail service, and this requires careful, staged construction that minimizes disruption. The lengthy timeline also speaks to the challenges involved in such a large-scale infrastructure project, where every step needs to be executed with precision.
The year 2026 could mark a turning point for Amtrak, as long-discussed expansion plans begin to move from concept to reality. Across the country, demand for rail travel is rising, and policymakers are looking to trains as a practical alternative to congested roads and short-haul flights. With potential new services, extended routes, and strategic upgrades, Amtrak's network may soon reach more communities than ever before. What does this growth actually look like, and how soon could passengers feel the impact? In this episode of Great Train Speed, we'll break down the possible expansions shaping Amtrak's next chapter. After over a decade of planning, Pennsylvania has reached a milestone. A 2023 agreement with Norfolk Southern will add a second daily Amtrak round trip between New York City and Pittsburgh. Amtrak operates 14 daily round-trip trains between New York City and Harrisburg, yet only one eastbound and one westbound train continue all the way to Pittsburgh. The new agreement aims to change that equation by adding a second daily train serving Pittsburgh, with stops including Lancaster City and Elizabethtown, effectively doubling long-distance service on this critical corridor. The total cost of the project is estimated at $142 million to $171 million, with PennDOT publicly committing over $200 million to cover the full funding package, including contingencies and matching requirements. This total was structured as a shared investment between Pennsylvania and the federal government. Roughly $144 million was expected to come from federal discretionary rail grants, while the remainder would be funded by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania through PennDOT. Originally, agreements between PennDOT and Norfolk Southern in 2022 suggested the second train could begin service as early as 2025. However, by 2023, the projected start date slipped to 2026, reflecting the time required for construction, coordination with freight rail operations, and regulatory approvals. The project's timeline is now uncertain due to federal funding instability. The $144 million federal share, awarded through programs created by the 2021 Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, has not yet been formally obligated. Under the Trump administration, several discretionary federal grants, including this one, were paused or placed under review, leaving the funding in question, according to Pennsylvania Transportation Secretary Mike Carroll. While the funds have not been canceled, the lack of a clear federal commitment has made PennDOT reluctant to proceed at full speed. Without confirmation that the federal share will be released, the state risks advancing construction without assurance that it will be reimbursed. Governor Josh Shapiro has challenged the federal funding freeze in court, arguing that the pause on previously awarded infrastructure funds is unconstitutional. Although the federal government has since released more than $2 billion in previously frozen funds, transportation-related grants, including passenger rail funding, remain under review. As a result, the $144 million allocated for the second Pennsylvania train is still unresolved. Perhaps in 2026, the second Pennsylvania train will be coming. Just as Pennsylvania is expanding connections westward, attention is turning east, where Long Island could soon see its own boost in direct Amtrak service next year. A new passenger rail service connecting Ronkonkoma and New York could be happening soon, with work expected to begin in 2026. As of 2025, the extension remains in the planning and feasibility phase, supported by a $500,000 grant from the Federal Railroad Administration. That funding is being used to study how Amtrak service could operate alongside the busy Long Island Railroad network. The proposed route would include stops at Hicksville and Jamaica, key transfer points that would link Long Island directly to the Northeast Corridor. Current concepts call for 3 daily round-trip trains aimed at serving both commuters and longer-distance travelers while creating a smoother connection between local and inner-city rail. Right now, teams are focused on feasibility studies, environmental reviews, and preliminary engineering. If those hurdles are cleared, construction could begin in 2026. Close coordination with the MTA and local agencies will be essential, as any work must be carefully timed to avoid major impacts on daily Long Island Railroad service. The current outlook suggests that if everything stays on track, Amtrak service could launch around 2028. A major question is how Amtrak's forthcoming Aero train sets can be integrated into LIRR operations without disrupting existing service. That means closely examining track capacity, signaling systems, and station layouts, particularly on the heavily used main line. Unlike traditional LIRR operations focused on local travel, this expansion would integrate Long Island directly into Amtrak's inner-city network. The economic implications are significant. An Amtrak study estimated that expanded regional service could generate up to $44 million annually in economic impact. Improved connectivity is also expected to boost tourism. According to Longwoods International, Long Island attracts more than 40 million visitors annually. While Long Island's rail-linked tourism growth reflects steady, long-term demand, other regions are preparing for a very different challenge: managing short-term travel surges tied to major global events. Beginning in April 2026 and running through June, the corridor will temporarily add a third daily round trip, a move designed to absorb an expected surge in travel tied to the 2026 FIFA World Cup. For a service that normally operates twice a day between Kansas City and St. Louis, this is more than a simple schedule tweak. It is a test of how regional passenger rail can respond when a global event arrives at its doorstep. Kansas City will host several high-profile matches, including 4 group stage games, a round of 32 clash on July 3rd, and a quarterfinal on July 11th. With tens of thousands of visitors expected to move across Missouri before and after each match, pressure on Interstate 70 will be intense. State officials are well aware of that reality. To make that happen, the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission approved $1.7 million in general revenue funding to support the additional River Runner service. The money, approved as part of a targeted appropriations request, will fund the extra daily train for 3 months. The timing is significant. The FIFA World Cup is one of the most watched sporting events on the planet, and its arrival in the Midwest places Missouri within a global travel network, if only briefly. For now, the extra River Runner trains represent a practical, timely response to a global event. They offer choice, reduce strain on highways, and remind many Missourians of rail's quiet potential. In 2026, there's going to be a lot of new stations completed, thus giving a new potential expansion. Construction on Brattleboro's brand new Amtrak station is expected to wrap up in February 2026. That gives the state a clear window to plan for a future train that could debut soon after the new station opens its doors. The Milwaukee Airport Rail Station project represents a quiet but important upgrade to one of Wisconsin's most strategically located rail stops. Situated along a busy freight and passenger corridor, the station today operates with a single permanent platform on the east side, serving Track 1 adjacent to the station building. While functional, This configuration has long created operational friction, particularly when Amtrak passenger boarding and deboarding conflicts with freight movements on the same tracks. The project centers on building a new 800-foot concrete platform west of the corridor, beyond Canadian Pacific Kansas City's two main tracks, along with a fully accessible pedestrian overpass featuring elevators on both sides. On the east side, the elevator will integrate into the existing station building and walkway, improving passenger flow and meeting modern ADA standards. By improving capacity, safety, and accessibility, the station is being prepared for potential future passenger rail expansion, whether that takes the form of increased Amtrak frequencies or new regional services. The upgraded infrastructure ensures the corridor will be ready. Completion is expected by spring 2026. Although it may not grab headlines, once finished, it will quietly make rail travel through Milwaukee faster, safer, for decades to come. Do you think 2026 will be another big year for Amtrak? Drop 1 if you agree or 0 if you find it impossible. That's all for today, folks. See you next time.